the honor is all mine to introduce somebody from Montenegro. You have bloggers here, you have podcasters, you have a lot of people interested in the industry. Natasa Djukanovic is someone from the domain .me. As you all know, Montenegro has the best domain in the world, like .me. And we are trying to do the best use of it. So how influencers are turning the corporate world upside down. She's going to talk about it and represent what we do actually here in Montenegro as a group. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. So I am the 12th speaker in a row today without a break. So I'm going to try to be as short as possible so that we can all go and have some coffee. So how many people from you are working for a corporation now or have worked before for a corporation?
Nope.
Okay, that's a lot. So how do you define corporate world? What do you think is the best definition? Well, it's everything opposite to influencers. Corporations are mostly seen as one organism, but the problem is that that organism is not one person, and that everybody that works for a company has to behave the same way. So you see a bunch of people, be it 10 or 20 or 10,000 people, they all have to behave the same way. I used to work for a corporation, and I was in charge for rules and procedures, and I was the one who would say how everybody would have to behave. I worked for an airline business, and the big part of those rules and procedures is connected to branding. So I would have to say if this is a good uniform for a captain, or if this is a good example of how do you see an airline ticket, and everything else that goes behind that. So at a certain point, I left the corporate world, and I worked for a bank a little bit, but then started to work for this small company, .me, and then realized that actually, I actually want to have my own personality. I don't have to dress up the same way as everybody else in the company. So the company I work for now is like 6 of us, and we all present our personalities completely different. We are completely open to show ourselves who we really are. So we all have our own hobbies, and we privately and from the business perspective show ourselves to the world. On our Instagram accounts, and also go on Facebook and Twitter and everything else. So I started in 2008 working in social media as a marketing manager. We started working with social media, and then right after that, influencers started to work there. And then my job was to find the best kind of influencer that would work and present my company. So how do you present, it's easy to present a fashion industry, right, as an influencer. How do you present a domain name? What do? You have a story to tell. You have to say something really interesting. Like lots of companies and factories and services have actually something that's very boring. So we have to find a way how to tell the story. And also, if we create that story, we have to find good influencers who are going to present that story for us. That's a big problem. That's a problem of the connection between a corporate world and influencers. And I think you all know that, be it corporations or being influencers. So you all know this example, right? From the 2014, I think, Oscars. So Ellen DeGeneres showed up the new phone, Galaxy Samsung, and that's a product placement, basically. The problem is that she actually used iPhone. I think this is the biggest nightmare of all the corporations when they work with influencers. Whatever you do, this is not supposed to happen. And there are so many other, so Gal Gadot, that was last year, also. Huawei, Twitter for iPhone, if you can see what says there. So it's not just a problem of the smaller companies, but also a problem of huge companies. You also heard all about the Kendall Jenner, the Pepsi ad from last year, or the year before, 2017, where they made an ad which was supposed to be some kind of social justice, but was completely wrong time. And then the problem with the influencer that they used, it all circled down. It was a big nightmare for Pepsi company. This is also one of the Kardashians that made a mistake. If you can see in the captions, it says, here you go, at 4 p.m., write the below caption, and then the caption. Yes, that's how that works. So we, the corporations, send to, and everybody who is an influencer probably has this, they send the text, we send the text, and then the influencer just copy-paste everything. This happens a lot. And this is probably the biggest nightmare ever. So, yeah, Oprah Winfrey is also one of the examples, the Microsoft Surface Twitter for iPad. So, what I'm going to speak here about is emotions and passions. And that's what, my friends, that's the internal joke, they always make fun of me because I always speak about emotions. So, when we started to work, we had no idea how can we find an influencer to work for us. So we basically just scanned around whoever was tweeting, at that time it was mostly tweeting, and also on Facebook, people who were actually connected to us and who had a passion for domain names. I still don't understand people who do that. I do because that's my job, but privately, not very much. So we found those people, and those people grew with us. They are now our biggest influencers. So we found them with their stories, we defined their stories, and we went into it, and then we started working with them. Most of those stories are usually just not even paid for, which is the best part. And then also comes the control. The fails that I just showed. How can we control people about what they say? We can't. And that's where we never send captions to them. We never tell them what to say. We just talk to them. And as corporations, that's my first advice. Talk to every influencer face to face and ask them what do they think. Create a story with them. It's a lot of work, especially if you're working with micro-influencers, and we do, but then that's the only way how you share this passion. The first story that you talked with them, that you try to see what's the most important thing is values. If somebody has different values than you as a corporation or as a company have, you can't work with those people. That's the biggest danger of everything. And that's the danger of Kendall Jenner and PepsiCo, because they had different values. They didn't think about that. That happens tons and tons of times. Like values, and I think 2 or 3 people of the previous speakers mentioned values. We never think about why is that so important. It comes to be very important if you have an influencer who works for you and who presents your company in the best light, and then the day after they say something completely opposite. And that becomes a question of authenticity, of you as a brand, as a reputation. So that's something that definitely cannot be a part of, it has to be a part of every conversation with every influencer. And there where the passion comes from. So the passion between influencer and a corporation comes from the same values, not just passion for a product or a service or a company or a brand, but the values also. And values are a very personal thing. And that's how you get in control. Thank you.